Very good morning, everyone. Today we will be studying the unit 6 of our course, wherein we will be talking about consumer equilibrium and consumer surplus. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Sanjay, Assistant Professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics, CCSHIU, SR. So let's begin. These are the contents of our presentation or this lecture for the day. What is consumer equilibrium? How do we derive a demand curve from it? What is consumer surplus? What are the difficulties related to its measurement and its practical uses or practical importance? How does it relate to our real life? So what is consumer surplus? Consumer equilibrium. Consumer equilibrium, it simply means how much people decide to buy when people are in equilibrium regarding their buying decisions. According to the law of diminishing marginal utility, I told you that consumers will keep on buying until the marginal utility, that is the satisfaction they get, is more than the price. They will stop buying when marginal utility is equal to price. So this is called as the point of consumer equilibrium. At this point, when marginal utility is equal to price, the satisfaction of the consumer is at maximum level. This is called as the consumer equilibrium. He stops buying at the point when marginal utility is equal to price. Let's understand it by the graph. Marginal utility and price on the y-axis and quantity demanded or quantity bought is on the x-axis. As you know that marginal utility curves always slopes downwards, and at a given price, let's say the price is equal to rupees OP, the consumer will be at equilibrium at the point D, because at point B marginal utility, this red curve, is equal to price OP. He is going to buy OQ1 quantity of the good, because at this point marginal utility is equal to price. If he buys any more quantity, then marginal utility will be lesser than price. That is, the satisfaction he gets from these additional goods is less than the price, and in no way we are going to pay for something that is going to give us lesser satisfaction than its price. It's not the case. It doesn't happen that way. It will be irrational. A rational person will always equate marginal utility and price, and he is never going to pay more than the satisfaction he gets. So Q1 here is the equilibrium quantity, and this is called as consumer equilibrium. That a person maximizes their satisfaction by comparing marginal utility and price, and decides to buy that quantity of good where marginal utility is equal to price. Let's derive the demand curve by using what we studied in the consumer equilibrium. See, as we know, consumer equilibrium is given by when price is equal to marginal utility. So what happens when the price keeps on changing? Let's say from this graph, price has reduced from P1 to P2 to P3. Now, where is the equilibrium? Equilibrium earlier was at A when the price was P1. When the price reduced to P2, equilibrium shifted to B, and when the price reduced to P3, the equilibrium shifted to C. And on these equilibriums, different equilibriums, the quantity bought was Q1, Q2 and Q3. The quantity bought increased as the price reduced. So when we plot price and quantity demanded on the separate graph, quantity demanded on x-axis and price on y-axis, what we get is a negative relationship, and this is called as the demand curve. When price of something reduces, the quantity demanded generally increases. Alright, so this is how we derive demand curve from the marginal utility curve and consumer equilibrium concept. Now let's talk about consumer surplus. What is consumer surplus? See, how do we define? First of all, this concept was given by Dupuit in 1944, and after that it was again given by Alfred Marshall, refined by Alfred Marshall in his book Principle of Economics in 1890. See, these dates might be wrong. I'll have to check them again. What it says is consumer surplus is equal to the price a person is willing to pay for a good rather than go without it. This is the maximum price he is ready to pay for something minus the price he actually pays. What he is willing to pay and what he actually pays is called as the surplus satisfaction or consumer surplus. What is the maximum price he is willing to pay? It will be always equal to the amount of utility derived. Alright, he will not pay more than the satisfaction he derives from that good. So the price he is willing to pay, the maximum price he is willing to pay will always be equal to satisfaction. Maximum price willing to pay will be equal to marginal utility or the extra satisfaction. He will never pay more than marginal utility. Alright, so the maximum price he is ready to pay is marginal utility is equal to marginal utility minus what he actually pays is called as consumer surplus. Okay, so in case of, let's say, 1 unit of, we are buying one apple, it gives him a maximum satisfaction, it gives a marginal utility of that apple is 50 utils. So a consumer at max can give 50 rupees for that apple. Let's say the price of that apple was only 20 rupees, so the surplus, consumer surplus, is 30. In case of many goods purchased, many units purchased, it will be equal to the summation of marginal utilities, that is the total marginal utility of all the units combined together minus the total money spent, price into quantity of those goods bought, is equal to consumer surplus. Also, it can be written as sum of marginal utilities is total utility, that is total satisfaction, minus total money that has been spent on the purchase. This is called as the consumer surplus. Let's represent it by a table. Let's say the price of a good is rupees 6. From the law of diminishing marginal utility, we know that consumer will purchase until the marginal utility is equal to price. He is not going to purchase more than that. Okay, when he equates marginal utility and price, he gets to his equilibrium. Okay, this is the equilibrium we studied in the very first slide. So according to this graph, let's say he is thinking of purchasing different units of toast. First unit, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and he has tabulated that how much extra satisfaction he gets from different units of toast. First unit gives him marginal utility of 20, then 18, 15, 11, 6, 4, 3, 2. So when the price is 6, in any case he is not going to buy more than 5 units of toast, because the sixth unit gives him satisfaction of 4, but the price is 6. So in any case he is not going to pay for more than what he is getting. So he is not going to buy the sixth unit more than 5 units, so he is going to buy only 5 units. So as we understood, marginal utility equal to price at fifth unit, so he is going to buy only 5 units. So the total satisfaction, total utility he derives from those 5 units is equal to 20 plus 18 plus 15 plus 11 plus 6, and that is equal to 70. Total money he has paid for those 5 units is price into quantity. Total expenditure is 30. So his consumer surplus will be equal to 40. Alright. The other way we can also write as summation of marginal utilities. It will be the same, 70 minus price into quantity, 6 into 5 is equal to 30. 70 minus 30 is equal to again 40. So the consumer surplus according to this tabular example comes out to be 40. Okay. Let's understand it by a diagram also. As we know, this is the point of consumer equilibrium. Consumer equilibrium comes when the price is equal to marginal utility. So this staggered curve can also be shown like this. Just it is for the sake of, let's say for the first unit we get a marginal utility of 20. For when we buy second unit we get a marginal utility of this one, that is equal to 18. Third one 14. Fourth one 12. Fifth one 10. Price is equal to 10 and marginal utility of 1 2 3. Fifth unit is equal to 10. So he is going to buy, he buys, he will buy first, second, third, fourth and fifth units. He is not going to buy more than 5 units. He buys only 5. Alright, so this is the amount of money he has spent. That is, money he has spent is equal to 5 into 10 is equal to 50. Total satisfaction he gets is equal to 20 plus 18 plus 14 plus 12 plus 10. How much is it? 38, 52, 64, 72. So the consumer surplus according to this graph is equal to 72 minus 50 is equal to 22. Alright. It can also be shown by when the variations are very slight. So it can shown by this curve. This is shown staggered because the variations are big. So we can see that by this example we can also count how much the consumer surplus was. Also from this graph, if the price increases and the demand curve remains the same, price goes up. So earlier this was the consumer surplus. When the price increased, only this much remains. Further price increase, only this much remains. Okay, so as we can see that as the price increases, the consumer surplus reduces. There is a negative relationship in between price and consumer surplus. Okay, all right. What are the difficulties in measuring this consumer surplus concept which we have studied right now? See, actually consumer does not have a complete list of prices. That means we do not know about the complete demand curve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the so many combinations that are required to make up a demand curve. Generally, consumer is concerned with only a few data points, few demand, few quantity and price relationship which he is familiar with. See, the cases of scarcity, when the quantity is very low, scarcity, and when there is, let's say, what do you call it, I just forgot the name. When there is scarcity and when there is glut, that is, scarcity means quantity is very low and quantity is very high. When the quantity is very low, so the prices are very high, and when the quantity is available just after the harvest season for vegetable crops, so the prices plummet. These things we are not familiar with very much. Okay, so these portions of our demand curve are not very easily given out by the consumers because they are not concerned with these things. They are concerned with only this much of price and quantity variations. They don't know about the complete demand curve. Okay, so if they don't know about the complete demand curve, because they might have not seen the times of scarcity, they might not have seen the times of glut. Okay, but for making this graph we need a lot of price and quantity relationships. Some consumers are just not familiar with those many combinations. So as I said, consumers are not familiar with the times of scarcity and glut. They are concerned with only a few price and quantity relationships. That's why they don't know about their complete demand curve, and that's why it's very difficult to measure consumer surplus. Necessaries of life, necessaries of existence, and cultural necessaries, as let's say food, clothing, and shelter, and some cultural necessaries in terms of let's say the things we are supposed to do when somebody dies, some marriages there. So these things have infinite consumer surplus. All right, because consumers can't tell that for these particular things how much satisfaction they get. They simply cannot tell because these are some necessities of life and they never think about the level of satisfaction and their prices. So in these cases they cannot tell you how much of satisfaction is there, but it is definitely a lot. So as compared to the prices, all right, there are some economists who say that for these necessaries of existence and cultural necessaries, they only remove the pain, the burden of people. They don't give any pleasure, they don't give any kind of satisfaction. Okay, so the concept of consumer surplus as it is cannot be related to these types of goods, necessaries of existence and some cultural necessaries. Some say they have indefinite consumer surplus because the satisfaction people get by having these things is indefinite. The satisfaction one gets by having a bowl full of food in front of them or dying of hunger is indefinite. It gives them a lot of satisfaction. They cannot even count it. Alright. Same with the clothing, same with shelter over their heads. But some say these things are not concerned with a positive feeling, so the consumer surplus should not be associated or cannot be associated with these things. Also, when there is a variation in income of the respondents, some respondents or some people are rich. See, these types of consumer surplus are given for everyone, for average, for say many people, not just me, not just you. Consumer surplus for you might be high or might be low, and for me it can be vice versa. So let's say, by the sake of an example, there is a variation in income of the people. Some people who are rich and other people who are poor. Rich people are ready to pay for something very high amount, ready to pay more for something rather than go without it, whereas poor people are ready to pay less rather than go without it. That means the marginal utility for rich can be very high and the marginal utility for poor can be very low, because as people are rich, their demand curve is on the higher side, and when people are poor, their demand curve is only lower side for the same good. So how can we compare consumer surplus for these two people? So it is solved. This difficulty is solved by taking averages. In terms of average mean, let's say there are 1,000 people, some of them are rich and some of them are poor, and they have different levels of income. At a level of average, when we average their incomes, there comes to be a single demand curve which might be able to give us a fair idea about consumer surplus according to the prices. Okay. The other difficulty that people face while studying this concept of consumer surplus is marginal utility of money changes. As we have less and less money left when we buy more and more of a good, the marginal utility of money, because less and less of money is left after purchases, the marginal utility of money that is left with us increases. So when we have less and less money remaining with us, we are ready to pay less and less now for that good. Earlier we might be purchasing the good at rupees 10. Now when we have purchased a good quantity, let's say we have purchased 50 units, and the money with us is now money with us has reduced to very low amounts. So this very low amount of money, its marginal utility has increased, its importance has increased. Importance has increased, so we will be spending this money more judiciously. So judiciously means we will not be paying the same price for the good. As we have less money now, so we cannot buy the good at earlier prices now. Okay. If somebody wants to give us that good, if somebody wants us to buy that good, the price of that good needs to be reduced. Alright, as you can see, I'll show you by the example here. See, as we keep on buying more and more quantity of a good, we are left with less and less money. So earlier we were, we were calculating consumer surplus based on this price at rupees 10. Now when the money with us has reduced a lot, so what will be happening is now that we will be attaching importance, a lot more importance to the money that is left with us. So we will not be buying this good at rupees 10. We will definitely be demanding or be willing to pay a lesser price for it because the money left with us has reduced a lot. Next one is presence of substitutes. When there are no substitutes for a good, the consumer surplus is very high because we are ready to pay more for that good. When there is only one option, we will be ready to pay more for it. And also when there is no substitute and some, let's say, goods like diamonds, there is no substitute for it, platinums, there is no substitute for it, we are ready to pay more and still the consumer surplus is very high for that thing. Alright, but no, in this case it is not the case. When there are no substitutes for a good, the consumer surplus of that good is very low because when there is nothing, let's say electricity, the electricity board is only the supplier for the electricity and there is no other substitute for us to have, and that board is charging us prices. Let's say it has increased the prices and there is no way we have to pay that price, and if we are paying high prices the consumer surplus for that will be low. Alright, but when there are many substitutes of a good, the consumer surplus for that good will be low because we will be ready to pay less and less for that substitute because there are many options available with us. See, it is that simple. For the solving this kind of a problem, these kind of substitutes for calculating consumer surplus for these kind of goods, these substitutes are considered as one. What is the practical uses of this concept of consumer surplus in our real life? We will be studying by two examples, direct versus indirect tax, which is better. Direct benefit transfer, that means giving you the money directly, or subsidizing the products, that means making the products you consume cheap. Direct tax means your income tax, when wherever you are getting income from, your money is just deducted from there only. Indirect tax, that is there is on petrol. Let's say its manufacturing cost is rupees 50 plus rupees 20 and then it is given to you at rupees 70. So this tax which increases the price of something is called as indirect tax. Let's understand this thing by an example. Which one is better? Direct tax is better or indirect tax is better? We're talking about cars here. Let's assume the supply curve of cars is perfectly elastic. This means perfectly elastic, that is PS. The curve is PS. This is the supply curve. Let me just take my pen, change my pen here. This is the supply curve. Alright, PS. When it is parallel to the x-axis, it is called as perfectly elastic because here in the at this price OP, consumers can buy, or the producer who is supplying things at the same price OP, he can sell, you can buy any quantity from him. You can buy this much or this much. The price will always remain the same, that is OP. The quantity that he is selling or the quantity that you are buying can be low or can be high, but the price will remain the same. That's why this supply curve is called as perfectly elastic. So when demand is equal to supply, wait a second, my pen is giving me some problems. Equilibrium comes when demand is equal to supply. Demand curve and supply curve, wherever they meet, that is the equilibrium quantity. That means they will give you a price at which price that quantity will be purchased. Equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity will be given. So earlier the equilibrium, when supply curve was this and demand curve was D, the equilibrium was at point C. At this price, at this point, price was OP, equilibrium price was OP, and the quantity that was sold or the quantity that was bought was equal to OQ1. See, quantity sold and quantity bought is the same thing. This was the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity, OP and OQ1. Indirect tax has now been levied on cars, which is equal to PP1. What happens is, as I told you with the example of petrol, indirect tax increases the price of something. Earlier the price of cars was OP1, now the price of cars has increased to OP2. Let's say this OP hash, not OP2, OP hash. So now the new supply curve is at price OP hash. People can buy any quantity of goods, any quantity of cars. It can be from this to this to this to this. It is a perfectly elastic supply curve, and this is P hash. This is the supply curve, new supply curve. Alright. So the new equilibrium according to the old demand, new supply will be at B. At B, demand is equal to P dash hash. At B, demand curve and supply curve are equal. So now we can see that earlier when the supply was OP, when the price was OP, sorry, this is giving me a lot of problems now. I don't know what is happening. When the price was OP, OQ1 quantity was bought at OP price. Okay, the consumer surplus is the total satisfaction we get. The consumer surplus by terms of diagram was this much, DCP. This was the consumer surplus because the money spent was, total utility was equal to DCQ1O, and expenditure was equal to OPCQ1. This was the total utility and this was the total expenditure. This is the total expenditure, this one, and this is the total utility. So if we just minus this thing out of this, we get consumer surplus DCP. At the new equilibrium point, OQ2 quantity is being bought at OP dash price, and in this case the consumer surplus has now become equal to DBP dash. Alright, so as you can see, DCP is greater than this quantity. So how much consumer surplus has been lost due to an indirect tax? The loss in consumer surplus is equal to DCP minus DBP dash, which is equal to P dash BCP. This much has been the loss of consumer surplus. So out of this loss, the government has got P dash BA. The government has got this much amount of money because this much is the tax on PP dash is the tax on 1 unit, and OQ2 units have been bought. So this green color area you can see is the consumer surplus that went to the government. Okay, but due to the price increase, the quantity that was bought earlier, that was OQ1, reduced to OQ2. So this BAC area that you can see, this particular area is called as dead weight loss. That means there has been a loss of consumers which did not go to the government. So there is a loss of welfare due to indirect tax. Therefore, it is better to levy a direct tax of P dash B A. This much of direct tax could have been collected from the consumers directly, which would have saved us from the loss of this BAC, additional consumer surplus loss. This could have been saved. Alright. Now direct benefit transfer versus subsidy. Subsidy is generally given to reduce the price of something. Let's say here we are giving a subsidy of rupees 100 on a bag of urea. The price of urea was earlier 400 rupees. Now 100 rupees of subsidy has been given by the government. It is costing rupees 300 to the people. Okay, earlier at price 400, the supply was perfectly elastic, PS. But when the subsidy has been given at P dash price, that is 300 rupees price, the supply curve is still perfectly elastic. That means you can buy any quantity at that given price. What is the benefit of this subsidy? Benefit of this subsidy has been the gain in consumer surplus. Earlier, the consumer surplus, when the price was 400 rupees, this was the consumer surplus, that is equal to EAP. Alright, but now the consumer surplus after the subsidy has been equal to EAP plus PACP dash. Earlier the quantity bought was 500 units. Now the quantity bought is 550 units. So people now are spending this much amount of money after the subsidy. Let's say people are buying this much at this price, so this much is the amount of money spent by them. Okay, and the additional, this upper triangle is equal to the consumer surplus, new consumer surplus after subsidy. Alright, this is equal to EAP plus PACP dash, PACP dash. But what happens is, this is the benefit, that the consumer surplus has increased. Let's quantify it. 500 into 100 rupees, 500 units, this much, into 100, this much, that is equal to 50,000 plus see this square area where additional 50 units are being bought now due to reduction in prices. Half of it is equal to 50 into 100 divided by 2 is equal to 2500. So the gain in the benefit or the gain is equal to 52500. Understood? This is the benefit of subsidy. What is the cost of subsidy? As you can see, now subsidy is being provided on 550 units. As you can see, due to reduction in price, earlier 500 units were being bought. Now when the price is reduced, demand has increased to 550, and on each of these units 100 rupees of subsidy is being given. So the total subsidy cost is 55,000 rupees. So cost is 55,000 and the benefit is 52500. So the cost is more than the benefit. So what we can do is, we can directly transfer this rupees 100 per bag into the accounts of the buyers. This much, let me make this graph a little clear for you. See, this much has been the increase in consumer surplus, PACP, but the cost has increased by this much amount. This extra amount of cost is there than the gain in consumer surplus. See, ADC is the extra cost. Cost is more than the benefit we are getting. So what should be done is, this 100 rupees per bag subsidy can be given directly into accounts of people who were buying urea. How many people were buying urea? 500 units of urea was being bought earlier. So the cost of direct benefit transfer would have been 500 into 100, that will be equal to 50,000. 50,000, by giving 50,000 money indirectly into the accounts, we can effectively reduce the price of urea and not let the demand increase for it, which leads to cost being greater than the benefit. That's why direct benefit transfer will save the government 2500 rupees if they give it to the consumers directly. Alright, if they reduce the price, quantity demanded will increase. Quantity demanded increases, so the consumer surplus does not increase as much as the burden of the subsidy. So this was all about the consumer surplus topic. These are the suggested readings from where you can read more about the topic. Alright, I just try to make your own notes. Make your own notes. And the doubts for this particular chapter will also be taken in the upcoming classes, so try to study it as soon as possible, once or twice. I know there will be many doubts in this topic, but they can all only be cleared when you are talking to me, right? Okay, thank you very much.